Hey everyone, today we're going to draw a face from scratch using very minimal and easy to follow geometry. No Loomis method, no excessive construction. This is our model. I don't start from a circle, I start from a cross. And what is this cross? I mark up the vertical center line and I mark up the line of the eyes and I mark it up on my actual reference image. Always have a reference image when you're learning how to draw. And always doodle on your reference image. You're copying something. So get the muscle memory, even doodle on the image itself. And we're dealing with the face looking straight at us. There might be slight variation, tiny little tilts of the head to the left or to the right, but they're so minor, they won't affect our geometry at all. Now what I like to mark up is the top of the head and the bottom of the head. And notice what that means for our front-facing person. That means that our eye line is smack in the middle. And that's something that a lot of people can't wrap their minds around. It is freaky, but there it is. And then I like to mark the sides of the face right here. Notice that there is no circle, there's no brain box, there's no skull or anything. And that is because skulls aren't actually circular. So marking up that perfect circle, a lot of times, just messes with people's minds. Instead, we're going to mark up where the eyes go because that is the single most important thing to place on any face. And where do they go? They go right in the middle of those horizontal segments. Place a dot, and then draw a circle about yay big around each of the dots. These aren't our irises, these aren't our pupils, these aren't the cutouts of our eyes, these are our actual eyeballs. And that dot in the middle isn't the pupil either, it's just the center. Then, following my reference image, not some random geometry, not some formula, but actually copying what I see on my reference image, I'm going to outline the shape of the jaw. And a lot of this has to be freehand. A lot of this has to be eye-to-hand coordination and practicing copying the shapes. Don't worry, you don't have to remember all of this. I've also provided you with printable step-by-step guides on how to apply my geometry to the front-facing view to create this portrait from any model. So make sure to scan the QR code that's appearing somewhere on the screen or follow the clickable link in the description and go get your free drawing guide download. And now that we have the bottom part of the face, we mark up the top, and it's not a circle. Again, it's more of a helmet. This is literally what the skull looks like facing forward. We see that brain box behind, and then we see that jawline on the front. To me, this is a much more intuitive way of seeing a front-facing head than trying to construct it from a circle. The circle is also deceiving because people often use the bottom of it to follow the cheek lines or to place the nose, and it doesn't actually always fall on that line, and that is also part of the frustration of working with Loomis. So instead, give your jaw a bit of a helmet, like so. Now again, working from my reference image, because what are you drawing? We're trying to draw too many things at once when we follow the Loomis method, but we have to focus on the actual goal. This is the likeness that I'm trying to capture. This is the person that I'm trying to draw. So the very next thing that I'm going to do is establish the hairline as I see it on my reference image. And that looks something like this. She looks remarkably like Wednesday Addams all of a sudden. It's freaky. The next important step is to add the nose. Noses are the most difficult parts for people to place, and that's because they rely too heavily on that Loomis geometry. It has to be at the base of that skull, and honestly, it doesn't. With tiny shifts in the position of the head and slightly different facial features, it's always going to be a little bit different depending on your model. So my rule of thumb is to place the nose so that it forms this type of a triangle. Get a visual memory for what this triangle looks like. It's not a perfect triangle, it's a little bit flat. If you want the nose to be longer, you drop the triangle lower. If you want the nose to be even higher, you make the triangle more shallow. Look at your model, look at your likeness, look at what you're trying to depict. And again, I've developed that muscle memory by tracing on my actual photo, so now it's no surprise for me to add it here. I will add the nostrils in these funky little shapes right here. And then about halfway down between the bottom of the nose and the bottom of the chin, I'm going to place the center dot for my mouth. Now, this is my favorite geometrical part of the facial structure, and that is these lines leading from the centers of our eyeball slightly, ever so slightly tapered down, they lead right to the corners of the mouth. So that's how I like to determine how wide that natural relaxed mouth is. Now, in a smile, in a grin, in a yell, in a cry, it's all going to be different because now our mouth is actually moving and opening and whatnot. There's expression. But a neutral expression, a totally boring neutral mouth, is going to be placed somewhere here. I like to place the center line of the mouth first and then start building up my upper lip and my lower lip. And there's some minor guides for that as well. I like placing these balloons, for the lack of a better word, on the left and the right, and that gives me the more curvy, sexy shape for the lips. Always make sure that the bottom lip is a little bit wider than the top, and it will also cast a stronger shadow underneath it. And that is why I like to mark up the actual circle of the chin next. Now, if you got to this point and the circle of your chin doesn't look proportionally like this, then you need to adjust something. That means that your mouth is either too high or too low. For instance, if this chin can only be really, really super tiny and nothing else fits, that means your mouth is too low. If it's huge and it's taking up too much space, that means either your mouth is too high or your entire jaw is too low. So this is where we start adjusting things. None of this is cast in stone. You don't have to make these lines perfect every single time. Play with it. Adjust as you go. All of this is entirely about adjustment. And remember to follow those guides. The rest of this geometric sketch is just marking up where other essential elements of this particular portrait have to go. So in my case, she has this wild, messy short hair, so I'm very loosely going to mark up where that goes just so that I see the general size and shape of it as one single object, not as individual lines. I'm also going to mark up at the bottom of her earlobes as I see them on the photo. Don't overthink this. Don't try to remember it as any certain rule of thumb. Just learn by repetition where the ears generally go, and generally it's here. And what about those freaky eyeballs? Well, we dress them. We add the upper lids and the lower lids, and then we decide which direction her eyes are actually looking. Is she looking straight forward? Is she looking to the side? And all of a sudden, our weird little doodle is turning into something that looks like a human face. Now, when I take something like this to the drawing board, you can see that I go immediately into sketching. That's because most of this geometry is happening in my head. In fact, even when I mark up those vertical lines and horizontal lines and the eyeballs, you can barely see that on the page. And that's because most of the time I'm literally barely touching the page. And in fact, with the eyeballs, I do mark it up a little bit, but with the geometry lines, the vertical and the horizontal, I don't even draw that on the page anymore. As my hand passes on the paper, I just mark up a little dashed parts of it, not even the whole thing, not enough to interfere with my drawing. So it looks like I'm freehand drawing this thing just out of the blue, but I'm not. I'm following the geometry that I'm literally projecting with my mind onto the page. Do this a lot. Repetition, 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 and find models that you like. Find pictures online that speak to you, faces that you find interesting. Just when you're starting out, if you're just learning portraits, start with front-facing individuals. Tiny variation is okay. You'll play that by eye, but we don't want to jump into a 3/4 view yet. I will teach you that separately. And in fact, if you want to learn every single turn of the head and how this geometry changes as the head tilts and rotates, make sure to join my course, The Easy Way to Draw Faces. I'm going to drop the link below. And of course, if you're an artisan, you already have access to all of my courses, so swing by. And I'm actually going to add a few more chapters to it. As I make more art, I keep adding extra chapters to my courses. The full recording of this, I am processing into extra chapters for The Easy Way to Draw Faces as well, and specifically focusing on the shading part. Some interesting notes on the way that I sketch freehand is, one, I work on toned paper. I found something that's very pale pink, and I usually work on cardstock. And two, I sketch with a purple pencil. In fact, I teach that in the Steady Hand Masterclass. I am such a firm believer in the importance of this type of sketching and this type of 3D ghost shading, like I call it, that I made Steady Hand Masterclass free for everyone because I believe that it's an essential skill. So step one is I mark up where everything goes, and then I ghost sketch this purple already shaded version of my face. My eyes are constantly going back and forth. Reference image drawing, reference image drawing. But notice that I'm making the outlines disappear immediately. That is a key to achieving likeness. When we learn to draw faces, we are so stuck on following that every single line correctly, and we're so fixated on that single line movement. Like all of these Loomis tutorials, they expect you to know how to draw, they expect you to know how to freehand a circle, but they don't teach you how to do that. They don't teach you how to sketch. So a lot of times what I see from thousands and thousands of students who come in fresh from the cold into It's Easy to Draw Art Academy is these shaky forced line sketches. That is because no one taught you how to achieve that steady hand and how to sketch and shade like a pro. And that is with loose repeated lines, hair thin lines. That way you have wiggle room for adjustments. Notice how I'm adjusting everything with just the purple shadows. That is the key to achieving likeness. You don't need to know where to place those lines perfectly. You need to have the eye for adjustment. That's the mind shift that I want you to get behind. And once we have this purple ghost sketch, we can come in with our weapon of choice to start fine-tuning it. I went with this matte graphite to start adding my shadows with the lightest graphite in the box, still giving me that wiggle room for sculpting the face with shadows. Notice how few outlines I'm using. I am literally just adding pools of shadows where I'm seeing them on my reference image. But how do I know where to place them? Well, my geometry and my sketch had already established that for me. So it's like we're tracing our own work with that ghost sketch. It's quite amazing. You don't have to worry about knowing where to place things anymore. You can focus on shading. And shading is extremely important, and it's part of sketching and drawing. It's a huge part of it, because most of the time that you're being really hard on yourself and on that drawing, it's actually not your fault, and it's not your drawing's fault. It's just that you probably have outlines that may not be perfect yet, and that makes you think that there's something wrong with your drawing. If you don't cast your outlines in stone, and if you allow them to remain fluid and flexible, then you have a lot of wiggle room in the purple stage to adjust where everything goes, and now we come in with more detail and more detail with every single step. And once we have yet another layer of a ghost shading with our pale graphite or whatever pencil you choose to work with, we come in with a darker version of that. A lot of times I do these portraits in sepia, so I'll do my ghost sketch in purple and then I come in with browns. Mid-tone brown, then a darker brown, then a darker brown. I've done them in red, I've done them in blue, I've done them in purple. The sepia is very attractive and very pleasing on the eyes. But continuing with my graphite, the rule of thumb is we move up in darkness with every single layer, adding a little bit more definition with every single layer as well. So now as I come in with my darker graphite pencils, I'm actually bringing in more and more detail. And notice on our reference image where that detail needs to come in. It comes in the darkest shadows here in the hair. It comes in on this separation line between the lips, the nostrils, and the eyes. So that's where we bring in the darkest hues. And for the magic trick, I like to come in with a white Prismacolor blender. There are many white pencils out there, but white Prismacolor specifically is perfect for any tool, no matter what you use to get to this stage. If you come in with a white Prismacolor right now, it will create this magical glamour glow look, this kind of an airbrushed look that will be brought to your sketch. So if some sketch lines were a little bit too rough or a little bit too visible, this will clean it up. And all of a sudden it looks smooth and airbrushed. Love it. Depending on the tool that you use to do the actual drawing, it may actually affect the pigment. For instance, in case of this Faber-Castell graphite, it made it a little bit bluish, a little bit metallic without being metallic. You know, it gave it that steely look. And I recommend you use this white blender even if you're working on white paper and not toned paper, because of the blending effect, not necessarily because of the highlights. If you want to bring in highlights separately, you can do so with a white gel pen pen or a white acrylic pen. I'm bringing in this white acrylic brush marker and I'm adding just a few highlights, a little shine to her nose, a little shine to her lips, those reflections in the eyes, not much more than that. And to prevent her from looking like she's made out of glass or porcelain, I'm also immediately smudging that white with my finger. That's a really nice trick. And for my final trick, I like to come in with an acrylic blender marker to smooth everything out even further. You can bring in a purely clean acrylic marker, just as a blender, or a very, very light version of your main color. In my case, that's gray. The marker that I'm using is from the Arctic set. There are lots of really, really pale blenders that are barely visible on the page, and that's what we want. You definitely don't want to bring in like a sharp gray marker. You will ruin your drawing. Don't do it. So test it on scrap paper first. With me, I like to come in with this super pale gray and add a few extra harsher shadows and also blend everything a little bit better. And now that you know how to approach drawing a straightforward, very basic adult face, check out how to draw younger faces in this video coming up next.